All right, everybody. Welcome to the Rock Shop Community Podcast. I'm Dylan Kelehan. I'm here with my guest, Alex Kratz. Thanks very much for coming on here, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. We are sponsored by The Rock Shop, of course. And maybe we'll get some more sponsors. I'm hoping for Casa del Sol. Let's go. All right, Alex.
Absolutely. Pony up, guys.
Alex, so you are a writer for Nyack News and Views, right? Correct?
Yes. I am actually the editor of Nyack News and Views.
Okay. What's Nyack News and Views all about?
So, for those of you who have not heard of Nyack News and Views, you can find us at nyacknewsandviews.com. And it is an online-only publication. It was started in 2008 or maybe late 2007 by a guy named Dave Zarno. And he's a longtime Nyack guy, and he was just feeling that there was a lack of coverage of Nyack. I guess we had some like smaller publications that were around, that were in print, that had died out, and so he wanted to create Nyack's online newspaper without the paper. That was his whole tagline. So he started that in 2008. With another guy named Doug Foster, who's a really cool old Nyack guy. Had a chance to meet him last year. But they shepherded the Nyack News and Views for well over a decade, and really like found like a pretty nice kind of cult following. I don't know if cult following is
a following.
There was a nice little base of readers, and Bill Batson came on. He did the Nyack sketch log. You guys have ever been to the farmer's market? You've seen Bill. He runs the farmer's market. He does like a million other things around Nyack. And so he became kind of like one of the staple writers, artists that was on Nyack News and Views. And then they also have this guy named Mike Hayes, who's a historian. And he writes a column called Nyack People and Places. And that's really about like historical things in Nyack, either buildings or, events that happened. He does like these like super deep dives on those and goes into the historical societies and digs up all kinds of cool information. But those were the two kind of like main things that Nyack News and Views did. And then periodically we've had some really robust journalism too. And there's been times where they've had full-time editors and writers there. But Dave kind of was getting a little burned out. It was like 2002. And he was basically like, I can't do it anymore. I'm getting a little tired of this, but I want to keep it alive in some way. And so he was talking about maybe transferring it to some other website. So my friend Matt Kelly, who's also kind of a journalism nerd like me, he had found out about this, and he was basically said, hey, do you want to take on this thing called Nyack News and Views? I had heard about it. I had seen it. I moved to Nyack 5 years ago.
Oh.
And so when I was just like looking for like what's going on in Nyack, I would come across it and I'd see Bill's stuff. I'd see Mike's stuff. And I'd see things about what's happening in the community. And
right
so I was
on.
like, oh, this is like a really cool resource.
Right on.
So I didn't want to see it die.
Right.
I didn't want to see it get folded into some other thing and just kind of be like an archive. And so we decided to take it on.
And just keep rolling with it.
And keep rolling with it.
Nice, nice.
So I took over in February of 2022.
Yes.
So I've been doing it for a little over 2 years now. And, still keeping it going.
Nice.
Still doing journalism.
Nice.
We've still got a lot of Mike Hayes doing historical stuff. We're still doing things for like events.
Cool.
We do a thing called the Weekender or the Weekly Rec. And Bill does that for us. He basically tells you what's going on the weekend and the week's coming. So that's a big attractive thing for our readers. And then we send out emails for the Weekender stuff, and then for other news that we have.
Right on. Yeah. Sounds like a lot of work, dude.
It is, and so unfortunately, the big issue for me is that it's not a full-time gig for me.
Right.
It's very much a passion project.
Sure.
It's something that I love to do. Right now I'm doing it totally pro bono. I'm not getting paid for it.
That's only for now, though. You got to
for
get
now,
some sponsors
before I build the media empire up to a point where it's self-sustaining. And I'm just getting paid off the podcast advertisements.
I think you can. I think you can.
That's where we'd like to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been fun. We do stuff like, we'll show up at the Rock Shop concert.
Sure.
We'll do photo shoots of that.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, we love what you guys are doing here. So always trying to support, community efforts and just enhance the voice of the community, right? That's kind of what we see ourselves as is this kind of like institution that plays a role as journalists, to kind of the traditional role of a journalist, is to kind of hold the powers that be accountable, inform people about what's going on in their communities so they can be informed, engaged citizens, hopefully get them out to vote.
Sure.
And participate in the political and other like civic processes. It's good work.
Yeah. I have an idea for that vote thing.
Yes, please.
So we just have to put it on an app.
Put it on an app.
That's just what we have to do. If you can bank on your phone, you should be able to vote on your phone. And you can still vote in person if you don't have a phone. But why aren't we doing that? Because every person would just like check a little box on who they're going to vote on. It would be fun. There would be like, you'd have some skin in the game. I know personally, I don't really participate in all that, but it's just a personal choice that I'm not participating in it. But if it was on my phone, I'd probably participate. It's just, and I'd be way more informed because there'd be information on my phone about whatever issue there would be. Because I'd be like, oh, who's this person? Why should I look up, for example, my friend, Beth Davidson? Why should I see what she's all about and what she ticks? Like what makes her tick rather. So that's my idea for you.
You know what the problem with that idea is, Dylan?
Tell me.
It makes too much sense. Way too much sense.
Facial recognition ID on your phone.
I don't know why we can't do that.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I've always thought that, we should extend the voting period. We can make it online. We can make it mobile. Those are all things that we have the capability of doing. Like weekends, voting on the weekends, that might be better.
Maybe.
When
Just a thought.
People are not working.
Maybe have more than one day so you don't have to take a day off of work to go vote.
Yeah, we can make this easier.
Yeah.
The problem is, I don't know if some people want to make it easier.
That's a really good point.
That's and that's problematic, and that speaks to like larger problems with our system
and society at large.
Yeah,
for sure.
But yeah, it is ridiculous how low the voter turnout is.
It is.
I think I used to be a journalist in the Bronx, and there's tons of people in the Bronx, but only about 10% of them would vote.
Oh my God.
Only about 10%. I don't know what the numbers are exactly for Nyack, but it's very low.
I imagine. So you're in the Bronx? Let's talk about the Bronx. Let's talk about Alex pre-Nyack News and Views. So where'd you grow up?
Yeah. So I grew up in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
I lived there. My family, I was born in Olympia, Washington. My family immediately moved to Idaho.
Okay.
My dad's a preacher.
Okay.
He is a pastor with the United Church of Christ.
Uh-huh.
So he kind of just like went where the job went.
Right.
You know?
Sure.
So he was in Olympia. He got a job in a town called Lewiston, Idaho.
Uh-huh.
And we were there for 7 years. The day after my 7th birthday, we moved to Seattle.
Uh-huh.
And I grew up there and spent all the way, graduated from high school in Seattle. And then from Seattle, I went to college in Wisconsin.
Okay.
At a small liberal arts school called Beloit College, and got my degree there in English and minor in philosophy.
Cool.
If you ever want to geek out on the meaning of life, we can go there if you want to take it there.
Sure.
But
We could.
Yeah. I'm happy to do it.
Let's go.
And then from there, so I graduated from Beloit in 2001, and then moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
For a couple of years.
Okay.
And did some stuff there. I started my journalism career in Los Angeles. Started working, had a couple internships. Was doing some freelance work. That was where I really was like, I wanted to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
That was my goal coming out of college. Be a writer. I was into nonfiction stuff. And I did my final like portfolio assignment for my major. I wrote like 100-word short story collection, just about stuff that I had done. And I was really into nonfiction. I was like a big Hunter S. Thompson fan.
Cool. He's a wild guy.
Into that like gonzo journalism.
Kerouac and all
Yeah,
that.
Kerouac. I was really into the beats and just kind of I was like, I have to go like live life and like, experience it and like, and that's like what life is all about. And I'm going to write about it.
I love it.
In an interesting way.
I love it.
So that was my whole plan. And then, but I started doing just like, regular journalism stuff, like working for small newspapers and magazines in LA. And then I was also just like doing odd jobs. Like I spent a year as like a carpenter in LA.
Cool.
Which was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So learned how to like build furniture and like do sheetrock and
Nice.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah. It's fun stuff, and it's a good skill to have, especially now you're a homeowner, right?
It was a really good foundational stuff. I didn't know any of that. My dad was like a preacher.
Right.
My mom's a social worker.
Right.
They were not big, with using tools.
Sure.
Stuff like that. So I had to kind of pick that up.
Yeah, my dad was, but he didn't teach me anything.
No, he didn't like force you to do some projects.
I hammered a few nails here or there, but that was it. Yeah, and then we, destroyed a few walls in my house, but that was pretty fun. But I don't blame him for it. I was very annoying as a child.
I'm not gonna teach you anything.
Yeah. He wouldn't want to hang out with me. I was just like a little crazy person. But okay, cool. So Seattle, Washington.
Yeah.
Idaho, was it?
Yeah,
Idaho.
Idaho first, then Seattle, then to Wisconsin.
How many people are in your family, like your nuclear family?
Yeah, I have, so it's my mom and dad. They still live in Seattle. And then I have a brother, a younger brother, Adam, who is a couple years younger than me. He's a teacher in Seattle and lives there. He's got 2 kids. He's married. And then my sister, Elizabeth, we call her Lib. She's old. She's my older sister. I'm the middle child. And she also lives in Seattle, and she's a nurse.
So you're out here all alone.
So I'm out here all alone in New York. Yeah. So I'm like the weird like black sheep of the family.
Right.
And, like moved to the East Coast. But it took me a while to get here. After LA, I moved to Seattle. I moved back to Seattle.
Sure.
I got my first job in journalism for a newspaper called the Seattle Star, which was like a really cool local, hyper-local paper that was trying to expand. That was a great job for me. And then that paper died.
Right.
Like a lot of print publications in the mid-2000s.
Right.
The newspaper industry generally, just started shrinking. Print, was going away. And so there were just fewer and fewer jobs. But so then in 2005, when the paper died, I had an opportunity because I had applied to grad schools. Because my alternate plan, if I didn't get a job, was to apply for a grad school somewhere on the East Coast. Because my girlfriend at the time, she had moved to New York. And so she was going to Columbia for grad school, and I was in Seattle.
So you needed to get to New York.
I had to get to New York, man. I had this girl. So yeah, that was like all in limbo, you know.
Yeah.
We were staying together, and I kind of was like, I'll, you know, try to make it out there soon.
Yeah.
And then the paper died. It was funny because she actually came back to Seattle for the summer from college, from her grad school thing, and she was going to live with me for the summer. And we were just going to like live in Seattle, and then she was going to go back to New York. And then in the middle of that summer, I lost my job.
Oh man.
And I had just gotten this really cool apartment.
Oh no.
It was like the best apartment I've ever had. It was like close to the water in Seattle. It was like $600 a month. And
Nice.
It was like, I had a little view of sunset. I was so excited about it. And then I lost my job.
Whoops.
And the program that I had applied to in Washington, D.C. at American University was starting. And so they were like, yeah, we'll let you join the program, but you have to come now.
Right.
It was like in July. I just had to like pick up and like leave her there in
In
Seattle.
your apartment.
In my beautiful new Seattle apartment. Yeah. So yeah, that was how I got to the East Coast.
Okay.
So I spent a year in DC in grad school there. And then I got my first job in New York in the Bronx.
Okay, cool.
And that brought me to the Bronx. I worked at a newspaper called the Norwood News, which I believe is the longest running nonprofit community newspaper in the country.
Wow.
That's as far as I know. But it's this really cool kind of unique thing that was started through Montefiore Hospital.
Okay.
So we know Montefiore now because they took over the Nyack,
Yeah.
the big Nyack hospital, but they started in the Bronx. They're the biggest employer in the Bronx. They're huge there, but they had started this like real estate nonprofit company
Through the
hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, through the hospital and this was in the late 70s and early 80s, which if you know your New York City and Bronx history, this was the Bronx's burning time. You know, and you know, the real estate stock was in disrepair, and you know, there was a lot of arson from landowners. So they had like they had this whole plan that we're gonna buy up these buildings and make sure that they're gonna stay, you know, stable housing for people. And then once that kind of settled down, the guy who ran the Preservation Corporation, it was called the Moshalou Preservation Corporation. His name is Dart Westfall. He started the Norwood News. He was like, you know what this community needs is a community newspaper. That's what like good, stable communities have.
Right.
And so we started this newspaper called the Norwood News, and it's been around ever since. It's still going now. That was, they started that in 1987. I took over, I became a deputy editor there. And then I took over as editor-in-chief in, I think it was like 2010, 2011. And then I stayed there until 2013. And then I got a job in education. So I was starting to get a little burned out from the journalism stuff. I was basically, you know, one-man band there.
Right.
And it was great. I loved it. And I love journalism, and it got me writing. It got me out there and talking to people every day, and doing the things that I love. But it was getting a little bit too much.
Sure.
And so I had this opportunity to go work for a charter high school down in the South Bronx called KIPP, which has been around for a few decades now. It's now one of the biggest charter school networks in New York City. They have networks now all across the country.
Cool.
And they originally brought me on and hired me to start a writing center there because I did not have teaching experience, but I did have writing and editing experience. And so I learned how to create a writing center in the high school, which was a really fun experience for me. And then they asked me if I wanted to teach. Mm-hmm. And I said, all right,
Sure.
whatever.
Sure.
That was essentially my attitude about it. I was like, it can't be that bad.
Yeah. Similarly, I kind of did that with music in a weird way.
Yeah.
I've always been passionate about it, but like my brother and I just started playing in a band and we got paid. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm good enough to get paid.
Yeah.
Maybe I should keep this going.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it became a crazy passion. But anyway, this is about you, not about me.
Well, that's how we stumble into things, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's instructive for anybody who's trying to, get into something.
Sure.
It's not always that you have to be like, oh, I'm 100% dedicated to this and I'm going to throw my entire life into it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we just kind of stumble into things where we're like, oh, I like doing this.
Sure.
And, or like, this works for me right now. And I'm going to see how it goes. And then it sometimes turns into like a career or whatever.
I had Mario, the maker magician.
Oh yeah. We love Mario.
Shout out to Mario. You're the man. I love you, brother. Anyway, he came on here and, he told me his whole story and basically his message was, have dreams, but be adaptive with your dreams. Yeah. Because life is long and strange and wonderful. And if you can be adaptive, I mean, we're sitting in the rock shop right now, which I never dreamed of having a music store. It just happened. Yeah. It's not something I was like, I'm going to own a music store. I never even was like, I'm going to be a professional musician. None of these things mattered to me. I never thought about them, but they're a lot of fun. Yeah. And so I'm just happy to be like, oh, cool. This is fun. This is unique. This is weird. And same with Mario. He didn't want to necessarily be a children's magician. Yeah. But he was getting so many gigs. Yeah. As a children's magician, he just was like, this is cool. This is fun. I'm giving back to my community. I'm like, and then he rolled with it. And now look at the guy. He's like one of the most famous children's magicians of all time. It's hard to differentiate those two.
Yeah. I love Mario. Yeah. I know Mario. I know Mario well. Mm-hmm. Mario is actually the reason why I live in Nyack right now.
Wow. Why? Tell me.
Yeah. So, when we lived in the Bronx, we would come up to Nyack every once in a while because Mario is married to Katie, who is my wife's cousin. Ah. Yeah. So they would have us up there. They'd be like, they moved to Nyack. They were living in like Mamaroneck or something. Yeah. And then Mario has history with Nyack. He went to Nyack College for a little bit. And so they moved to Nyack and they lived in that cool loft building on Broadway, or on Main Street, right below Broadway, like east, I guess. It's that cool white building. Yeah. But anyway, they lived there. We would come out, and like every time we came out to Nyack, we'd be like, "Oh, this is like pretty cool, it's cute, and like charming, and kind of weird." And there's like interesting people here, and they were always hanging out with such cool people, and we were like, "Wow, this is like a nice little community," Yeah. And so when we were living in the Bronx, I said, I was like, "I'm not leaving the city." Yeah. Like I moved out to New York. I'm not trying to live in the burbs, like that was my attitude about it. And then, we started coming out to Nyack and I was like, oh, there's some like cool places out here. So I told my wife, I was like, if we ever move out of the Bronx or New York City at all, the only place I'm moving to is Nyack. I was like, cause Nyack, I don't know about this. This is my theory. Nyack is like the Portland, Oregon of Rockland County. Okay. All right, like it's just weird enough and cool enough and diverse enough, and stimulating enough that it like satisfies a lot of the itches that were getting scratched for me in New York City, which is that like the energy. So that was it. So Mario actually like played a big role in us coming out to Nyack. So when we were looking for places. When our family got bigger, my daughter was born in 2011, and then my son was born in 2014. We were looking for more space, and started looking in Nyack.
Nice.
And,
I love this place. It has
It
a
is
magnetism to it.
yeah.
I tried to leave twice, and I came right back. I did. I moved to Warwick twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's just so much more space and
bigger.
so way cheaper than it is here, and you get so much more bang for your buck. But there's a big trade-off. It takes you 30 minutes to get to the grocery store.
To get anywhere.
Yeah, so I ended up moving back here. Anyway, I love Nyack. I feel like there's a magnetism to it. I agree with you. There's a lot of interesting people. And doing this podcast is so much fun because then you get to, like, I would never get to ask you these questions, but I get to.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And then I get to know you, and now we're going to be like, hey, buddy, you're going to know me and I'm going to know you since we've done this. It's beautiful. And what's cool about this too is I could pretty much ask, I feel like just about anybody in Nyack to do it. And almost everybody will say yes.
Yeah.
Because everybody's just open and cool about it. And there's this magnetism that just brings people here. And Portland of Rockland County. It's like this. I see what you're saying. I don't know what Portland's all about. Just the crazy stuff I hear in the news.
Yeah.
I've never been there.
I mean it in a good way. Because there's this saying, and they have it for like Austin too, but it's like keep Portland weird,
right?
Or keep Austin weird.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope like we keep Nyack weird.
Oh, we will.
So I don't want to lose its like character. You know, that's what kind of makes it interesting.
Sure.
And I'm constantly meeting cool, interesting people here.
Right.
Like that's what I found is like it's just got this wealth. Of interesting people.
Right.
Like,
for sure.
That's what the best thing about it is.
And there's like this secret of like interesting people too that you wouldn't meet in the streets of Nyack or at a bar or any of the usual places. But if you're like in the community enough and you just do community events enough, they kind of come out of the woodwork a little bit. And you're like, oh, cool. That person's a writer, or that person's a magician, or that person's a legislator, whatever they are. It's just, and I know everybody's more than their profession. I know that, but it certainly makes it very interesting when they have an interesting profession.
Yeah. They're doing cool stuff for their professions. A lot of arty people here, you know, a lot of people doing innovative things, working for themselves, business owners like yourself.
Right.
So yeah. And then also like an engaged set of people who are, you know, active in doing things either in politics or doing things with farmers markets or, you know, soup kitchens and stuff like that. Like through Nyack News and Views, you know, we write about a lot of these people.
Right.
So it's been a really cool experience. Like that's what's been the coolest experience for me as the editor of the news site is just getting to know Nyack better.
Sure.
So I learn something about our community every time.
It's great.
And I don't know if I would do it as much if it wasn't my job. So I love that about it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to get it out to people in a way that they would want to be engaged in it too, even if it wasn't their job. Right. So that's my job with Nyack News and Views, is hopefully to make it a little bit more interesting.
Maybe we could start a Nyack podcast network.
Well, we are going to.
Yeah.
This is the foundation right here.
Yeah.
Is the Nyack Community Podcast.
Yeah.
And then the podcast that I'm starting this fall.
Cool.
Which I'm hoping to launch hopefully in September.
And you know I got your back. I'll help you with any of that. You know.
And we'll definitely work it out. We'll start there. You know, we'll bring on your guys from Sonic Tributaries.
Cool. What could you do? What can the community do to make Nyack News and Views more robust? And what could the community do? Like, is there anybody who is out there listening that feels like they could support? Like, how could they support you other than just consuming what you're putting out?
Yeah.
Like, is there an advertising revenue stream you could put together? Because we got to figure this out.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I appreciate you thinking about it. So there's a few ways, right, that we're working to kind of make our goal with Nyack News and Views is to make it a nonprofit.
Okay.
Like a sustainable nonprofit.
Cool.
That pays journalists.
Right.
Right.
I love
to
it.
do good journalism and produce their work for our website. So whether that is podcasting or investigative stuff or doing features or doing stuff about the music scene or whatever. So there's a few ways that you can support. Number one is just reading. Just going to our website, clicking on our stories, sign up for our email
Social
newsletter.
media, right?
Yep. Check out our social media. We usually put most of our stories up there. We're working on we'll have a more robust presence on social media. So those are some basics, right? And then we do take donations. So we're trying to create something like a NPR type of
like a fundraising
system where it's more like, it's kind of like this membership kind of thing.
Right. Brian Lehrer is going to give you a tote bag type deal.
We'll give you a little Nyack tote bag.
That's cool because you guys do have good
bag.
Yeah, you guys do have good merch, right? A lot of people I see wearing it.
We need some merch. We need some more merch.
Yeah.
We need to work that. And so, that's how we're going to do it. And then also sponsorships, from companies. We've got a couple, regular sponsors. One, Sun River Health has been with us for a long time. They've been hugely supportive of us. For a long time, Wheeled Realty was a main sponsor.
Okay.
Like usually we have a couple kind of like main sponsors, but we're always looking for it. And you can always advertise with Nyack News and Views if you're ever interested. Just go to our website. You can send us an email at info@nyacknewsandviews.com.
Cool.
And let us know if you're interested. We reach somewhere around like 10,000 unique visitors a month.
Sweet.
Which is cool. Our email list is over 2,000 people, and it's well read.
Right on.
So we're trying to, make it accessible in as many ways as possible. And our big thing now is, trying to expand on some like multimedia efforts. So that means like creating a podcast and doing some more like video journalism. We do amazing photo shoots from our esteemed photographer, Andrea Swenson.
She's cool. She's done some stuff for us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
She's great. Just really amazing eye, beautiful artist. And if you're interested in contributing, we're always looking for writers. We're always looking for more photographers or anybody who wants to do stuff for us.
That's amazing. So, I love that. Thank you. Let's take a switch gears a little here. I have a question. If I was to give you a blank check that said, let's just actually put a number on it. Let's say it's $500,000, and I say, hey, I want you to write a nonfiction story. What would you write about?
Oh, wow.
Like if this is a real scenario, you have $500,000, which is, 2-3 years of income. I don't know how ballin' you are, but it's expensive here in Nyack.
Yeah.
So it's $500,000. Let's say you got 2-3 years maybe to just write. What are you writing about?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question.
Thanks.
That is a really great question. I just thinking, because I've been very focused on Nyack and Rockland County, and I've been learning a lot about Rockland County, which I found out has the exact same demographic makeup as the country.
Really?
So in terms of like, racial background,
perhaps an abundance of Hasidic Jews, though, right?
Well, that might be, they don't show up necessarily on the demographics, but in terms of like the amount of white people, the amount of black people, the amount of Latino people and Asian people, it's almost exactly like it was weird. I was looking at it because I did some research for a grant that we were doing, and I was like, is this like accurate? This is like exactly America.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So one of the ideas that I've had just kind of about like thinking about covering Rockland and Nyack is, how is it reflective of like America as a whole.
Sure.
And like, where are the issues? I know like Rockland's very like polarized politically.
Yeah.
In very much the same way that America is. So I'm wondering like if I could spend like a couple years kind of like diving in and like really like digging into, I'm interested in the political differences because one of the big things that I've just kind of noticed, you know, over the last 10 years, and you probably have too, is just like the lack of conversation that happens between people, specifically politically.
Right.
We've really kind of like gone off to our corners.
Sure.
Right.
I agree.
And then every once in a while, like we have to mix to like do other things, but we're not even talking about the things that we should be talking about.
Right.
So I'm interested like in kind of like why that conversation isn't happening, like diving into that in more detail.
That would be a really awesome story. And that would take you a few years for sure.
Yeah.
To figure that out, because you'd have to find a way to break into those communities, because if you start driving up 59, I don't know if you've ever done that.
Oh yeah.
Once you get past Nanuet, there's like a whole different world there in Spring Valley. And it's cool. Yeah. It's hip. But I'm like, how can I access this world? I have no business there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like Haverstraw, same deal.
Yeah.
You go to Haverstraw and you're driving down and you're like, why is this here? And it's completely, and then Suffern's Main Street 59 is like, it's just a different country than where we are here in Nyack.
Yeah.
So you're totally right.
Yeah.
You're nailing it, because there's such pockets of diversity. And I mentioned the Hasidic Jews too. They're like, there's like pockets of diversity in these very specific areas, all located within this one county. Yeah. You'd got some work to do there, man. You really have to.
Yeah.
But you could. I actually broke into the Hasidic Jew community at one point, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah.
You converted?
Not really. No, but I'm fascinated by it.
Well, yes. I mean, that's a book right there.
Oh God. Yeah.
To, like what's happening in Ramapo.
Yeah. It's wild seeing
the
it
schools,
there. Crazy,
and the communities there, and how, that I still am kind of, that's a mystery to me still.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure things out there.
Well, so all I did was I opened a music school, my first go at the whole music store thing in Airmont.
Okay,
and so Airmont is like located right next to Muncie,
yes,
and Suffern, and that's typically where there's a large population of Hasidic Jews and Orthodox Jews.
Yeah.
And so then a lot of them shopped at the store that I was within.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them started taking lessons. And I was like, at one point I was auditioning for a Jewish wedding band. And they were like, will you wear a hat? I was going to be the bass player for Symphony. Wow. I didn't get the gig because I couldn't read their music as fast as they needed me to. Because they were like, no.
Different notes?
No, it's the same notes. It's just their style of music. They needed me to be able to sight read really fast, because brides and grooms will come up to them the day of and give them sheet music and say, we want you to play this song. And
like some obscure, like
that a klezmer style. I've never heard it, like oompa. They were like, it's an oompa. I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I didn't get the gig, but they were nice about it.
Yeah,
they were nice about it, and they were phenomenal musicians. But like, it was really cool to be in like a Jewish recording studio. It was wild. And I'm like, all right. And I made all these friends with Orthodox and Hasidic people, and there's a lot you wouldn't know about him. Like one of these guys, I won't out him. He's in the community big time, and he's a professional within the community. And he's like, I am zero religious.
Interesting.
He goes, but this is my family. This is my community. If I say I am religious, if I'm not religious, I'm getting excommunicated and no one's going to talk to me.
Right.
So I don't know how much of that there is, but he confided that within me, and now I'm blaring it over a podcast, but I'm not going to mention his name. But I imagine that there's a lot of that.
Right. And I mean, I think that's very interesting, because I think a lot of times what happens when we talk about the Hasidic and Orthodox community, it's kind of like this like monolithic, like they're all the same and they're all doing something,
right?
And it might, and sometimes it might be like a little nefarious and
right,
scary or whatever, and they're taking over things. But like they're also individual people.
Sure.
You know, and
Sure
I'm
are.
sure they're like
They definitely
have free will. They have their own thoughts about things. So I think going in and making friends in those communities and having those conversations again, like those are the things that we need to be doing more often.
Definitely. They're fascinating people. Like I taught this guy Lipa Schmelzer, and he's
a great name.
He's the best. And he's the most famous Jewish singer, I think.
What?
So all times the Hasidic community will come in here to the My Music store here, and they'll say something about Lipa, and I'm like, well, I taught him how to play piano. They're like, no way. And I'm like, I totally did. Yeah. So it's a cool, that guy was amazing.
Yeah.
A brilliant guy. It is a little nefarious. There are nefarious things that community is responsible for, but that doesn't make every single one of them the same. So that's a really, really good point. And then as far as that nefarious stuff goes, like they're operating within the law.
Yes.
So if the laws can be changed, then their behavior will change. But if they're operating within the law,
right,
they're just using the system that the government provided for them.
Exactly.
So even if they're using it in this way that makes everybody like grossed out, or you shouldn't be doing that, that changed the system. Mm-hmm. You can't just tell them, oh, this is legal. Don't do this though.
Right.
They're not going to follow that. They're a community. They know how to work together better than we do. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all those things are true. You know, you hear a lot about what's going on with the school district there. Like that seems to be the big issue. Right. Where they're not getting the funding that they need because it's going to the Hasidic schools. Right. So they don't have enough funding that they need for the public schools. Right. Right. Whereas when the general population is not going to the Hasidic schools, right? Right. And so it's just become this separate thing and like a fight over money, right? Whereas like not thinking about how can we make this good for everybody, make sure everybody's getting educated in the right way. Right. So divisive. It's very divisive. And it's unclear exactly, you know, how it's going to all play out. But
vote from the app. Vote from the app. That's
if we just had the voting app, you know,
everybody would use it.
Everybody would use it. The other thing, the other voting thing that we should do is just make it mandatory.
Oh, people should have free will though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of making it maybe like more encouraged. Like no one
incentivized.
Yeah.
You know, like give them like a Dunkin' Donuts gift card. Boxer Donuts gift card.
Not a little sticker.
Yeah. Yeah.
I voted. Wow. Okay, sorry. Yeah, but like, you know, this country is, I love the idea of incentivizing it more for sure, because I have really no skin in the game. I don't. And I admit I have no skin in the game. And I admit that it makes me just completely grossed out with politics in general.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way.
I'm so grossed out. But I would love to participate in local stuff. And then if I participated in the local stuff and I was hip to what's happening around me and the information was available to me of why I should or shouldn't vote for this person, not just told, vote for this person. I want to know why. Yeah. my bandwidth situation is pretty full. Yeah. But like if I had it on an app or I had it on Nyack News and Views where there was, this is the information about this candidate, this is the information about this candidate for school board. Yeah. If I was in it, I would be a lot more interested in it and I would find the bandwidth to do it, but I'm not. So we got to figure out how to get that information into people's hands.
I agree completely. One of the things that was one of our mission statements when we took over. We were like, we want to increase voter participation. And I'd like to see what the numbers, I haven't run the numbers lately, or seen if there's been an increase or a decrease. And there's always like, you know, there's more voters that come out on like a presidential year versus like, you know, an off year or whatever. But yeah, and one of the things that Nyack News and Views tries to do is we do try to give you that information as much as we can. At the very least, we sometimes do things where we do interviews with candidates, or we have them like write a pitch to voters, and we'll post them all up, so you can kind of just read everybody's pitch. And when we have more time, we'll kind of dig into some of the candidates in a little bit more detail. We got a big race coming up for Congress. That's going to have a lot of impact on the national scene. And that's the New York 17, which Mike Lawler is currently our representative in Congress. He's our only, Rockland has one congressional seat. And we share that. And then New York 17 is all Rockland County and then a big chunk of Westchester.
Okay.
So Mike Lawler is our representative right now. He's going to be going up against Mondaire Jones. Mondaire Jones was our representative from 2020 to 2022. And then in the weird redistricting thing that happened, I don't know if you remember any of that stuff, but the New York tried to redistrict. A judge told them that it was unconstitutionally gerrymandered in favor of Democrats because Democrats had created the district lines. So they did a independent. They redrew all the lines with an independent person, and in the weirdness, the aftermath of that, Mondaire kind of got pushed out of running for the seat. Sean Patrick Maloney, who was in New York 17, New York 18, he decided to run in New York 17. He thought it was a little bit more Democratic friendly. And then he got beat by Mike Lawler in a really close race. So it's going to be really close so Mondaire left. Now he's back and he's taking on Lawler again. So it should be a really close race. So we're going to be keeping close tabs on that.
Right.
Should be pretty interesting because Congress is now, it's like a 3-vote majority for Republicans right now. So it's just like super close. And and New York's got a bunch of swing districts like ours. That are going to be competitive, which is weird for the rest of the country. And this is the crazy thing about our messed up political system is 90% of the congressional districts in America are totally gerrymandered to the point where it's for sure that a Republican is going to be nominated or is going to win, or it's sure that a Democrat's going to win.
Wow,
right?
So sketchy.
So we are one of the very few districts where it's actually a competitive race, and we're actually so that's cool for us.
Yeah,
because we actually people have to actually listen to us and say and take into account what we want.
Right. That sounds pretty democratic.
Which sounds very democratic, yeah.
And fair.
Yeah. So it should be fun keeping track of that
Yeah.
Going into the fall. So check us out for more coverage on that.
That's really cool. See, I didn't know any of that.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. There you go. See?
But that's it's cool to know. Yeah. It's cool to know why it's important. It's cool to know that the Rockland County is actually fair. That makes me feel really happy.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not either Democrat or a Republican or an independent or anything. I'm a human being. And, I'd like to sit being a human being. But if one of these guys has a better idea than the other guy, I'd like for them to actually have a chance, and I'm not saying anything about that other than, shouldn't it be fair? Shouldn't it be fair? That's it.
It should be fair. It should be competitive.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see.
Yeah.
When people, it's in, I think it's in places where you don't feel like it's competitive. You feel like this is just how it is.
Yeah.
Right. And that leads to a lot of apathy too, where people are just why would I vote? Of course it's going to be a Democrat, or of course it's going to be a Republican. My vote doesn't even matter.
Right. That's literally my thought process.
I think that's how a lot of people feel. Yeah. I would argue against that and just saying even if it's not competitive, you should still have your voice out there.
Yeah.
You should still go vote just to show them hey, people are paying attention to what is going on.
Sure.
But that becomes harder. I can't tell you everything that Mike Lawler has done in the last 2 years.
Right. You have a family, you have a full-time job, you have a part-time job that you do for fun and because it's meaningful and it's good for our community. How are you going to take all this information in?
So that's, and that's the thing. Like we need to, and this is why, like, I believe in what we do at Nyack News and Views so much is we need to have that coverage, right?
Definitely.
Like if we don't have it now, we need to have it.
Sure.
So it's something that we're trying to build towards and eventually get to where we could have like somebody who's like covering what's going on in Congress and how it relates to what is happening here in Nyack and in Rockland County, in terms of like how it affects people on a daily basis. Because like, what I don't think we talk about a lot in politics is we talk about who's going to win.
Yeah.
Right. And we talk about, these like existential threats and how, it gets turned into this thing. What we don't talk about is what policies are actually impacting people's lives.
For sure.
And how can we make them better, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's kind of this like all or nothing zero sum game where it's like, if we win, everything's going to be fine. And if we lose, like it's all going to hell.
Right. It's not that. It's not
that as much, right?
No.
Like, and so even if you lose, even if your party loses or whatever, or even if you went out to vote, at least if you're saying like, hey, I'm here, here's my voice, here's what I care about, then hopefully, right, your representative would listen to you, your elected officials will listen to you and start implementing stuff. So that's what we're hoping.
Well, Alex, this has been a really fun, eye-opening situation here. If I had more time, I would love to learn about the local stuff. So if there's somebody out there who can contribute to Nyack News and Views I would love to see many sides of many aisles of many and various viewpoints that kind of summarizes what you touched upon here of how Rockland County is diverse, but it's so diverse, but it represents the country and like a ratio kind of way. I just messed that up, but I know what you're saying. And that'd be awesome if we could make that happen. So if there's anybody out there listening that wants to contribute to Nyack News and Views or just the LART or to the Rock Shop or whatever, just hit us up.
Yeah, absolutely. info@nyacknewsandviews.com. Send me an email.
Great.
Let me know how you want to contribute.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much for doing it. And thank you so much to the Rock Shop for sponsoring this and buying all this awesome gear for us. And if anybody wants to start their own podcast, give me a call. I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah. Huge thanks to the Rock Shop. We love what you guys are doing. My son loves drumming here.
Thank you.
So keep doing it. Keep contributing to the community. This is really fun.
Thank you. It was so fun. It's so fun being me in this building.
Yeah.
I just get to see your child, everybody's children thriving and learning music and just being positive and doing something hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And then succeeding at it and then getting to perform in front of their friends. I love it. So thank you to anybody who's supporting me here. I'm having a great time.
Fantastic.
All right, brother.
Awesome, man.
Bye, everybody.
Cool.